Today I have a really fun fall project for you guys. We are gonna make these cute fall signs. This is a really fun and easy project, and there's two different designs. There's this one, and then there's one that says autumn, and you can pick the pumpkin or the leaf for whichever wording you want. So here's the things that you'll need to make these fall signs. You will need some twine or hemp rope, a wooden dowel. This is 12 inches long and 1/4 inch thick. And then you'll need 2 to 3 colors of felt. They need to be 12 by 18 inches or else they won't be big enough. You'll want some matching thread, some fabric scissors, and fabric glue, and a hot glue gun. This one is optional. This is just for the last step if you want it. I designed this and I put the pattern for free up on my website. You can go get that from the description. I will put a link to it down there. There's 2 ways that you can cut this pattern out. You can either use the SVG and a cut machine, or you can cut it out by hand with scissors or a rotary blade. Now, if you're cutting it out by hand with scissors or a rotary blade, I also highly recommend getting a fabric marker and tracing around it so that it's easier to cut out. Cutting it out by hand is pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. Cutting out the SVG, some people might need a little bit more help with that, so I am going to walk you through how to do that in Cricut Design Space real quick. Once you have the SVG loaded into Design Space, what you're going to do is you're going to select the ones you want to make. So I'm going to make the autumn one with the leaf. And so I'm going to come into the fall and I'm going to deselect that so I won't see that. And I'm going to hide all of the things I'm not going to cut. Once you have all the things that you're not going to cut hidden, you're going to go ahead and make it. The little icon at the top is just telling you that it is longer than the standard mat, so you'll need to have the 12 by 24 cutting mat. All right, so once you've got it all loaded up, you're gonna come in and you're going to browse all materials, and we're gonna look up felt, and we're gonna click acrylic felt. So it'll tell me I need to have my rotary blade in there, which I do, and I will go to the machine and press go. Okay, so I'm gonna put my felt on my mat. And one thing that you need to note, if you're using the SVG, you'll have to use the rotary blade in your Cricut and the fabric mat. So I'm just gonna put my felt right on here, line it up, press it down, and then I can feed it through the machine. Then you just wanna load it in, push the go button, and let the Cricut do its job. Okay, and now that that's been all cut out, I'm gonna peel the felt off of the mat, and you will see our design is ready to be used and put on our sign. So since this is a little bit more of a delicate cut, make sure you're careful when you peel it up, because sometimes felt has the tendency to rip apart when you pull on thinner pieces of it. So just be gentle when you're pulling this up. And there's our piece ready to use. Once you have everything cut out, you're going to assemble it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the smaller piece and put it on top of the bottom piece. And then what you're going to do is you're going to try to align these corners and leave about a 1/2 inch gap on each side. So you may want to grab a ruler for this part. And it doesn't have to be exact, just pretty close. So that's about a 1/2 inch. That's about a 1/2 inch. And then I think this one just needs to be put up a little bit more. Okay, and if you want to use sewing pins to hold this in place, you can go ahead and pin this down. And then we are going to take it to the sewing machine and we are going to sew all the way around this part. I'm just going to put a couple pins to kind of hold it down for me so that it doesn't shift while I sew. Okay, my sewing machine is on and I'm turning my stitch length to about 3.5. I'm just gonna start in this corner, and remember you just wanna do 1/8 of an inch. It's not very much room to work with, but because it's felt, it actually does work. Don't forget to back stitch. And we're just gonna go all the way around. And when you get to a corner, you're just gonna pick up your presser foot, turn your fabric, and put your presser foot back down and continue to sew. And don't forget to backstitch to finish it off too. That just helps secure your seam so it doesn't come undone. And you can take it out of the machine, clip off the extra threads, and you're ready for the next step. For the next step, what we're gonna do is we are gonna fold the top down to the back side about an inch. It'll probably come really close to matching up with that stitch line. You just don't want it to be on top of that stitch line, probably just right behind it. And then you can pin that in place because we're gonna sew that down. You wanna make sure your edges line up. Sometimes the felt can move on you and it can create an uneven edge, so just make sure your edges are all nice and aligned. And I'm gonna go ahead and change the thread in my sewing machine so that it matches this brown, because I just think it looks a little nicer when the threads match. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in on the front side of this and I'm gonna feed it through the machine, and I am just barely going to miss going across the front piece. So basically you just wanna stitch right on the edge of that, all the way through. But you don't want to catch this top one. You want to be right next to it. And don't forget to backstitch when you start and stop your seams. Then you can pull it out of the machine and cut off the excess threads. Go ahead and double check the backside and make sure that you caught the fold in the seam so that it stays folded over. Okay, you've now created a casing for where we're gonna stick the dowel. Okay, but before we get to the dowel, what we wanna do is we wanna put our design on the front. Okay, now there's two ways that you can do this. You can either sew each piece on individually, or you can just use the fabric glue. I opt for the fabric glue because it's a lot easier for me and it's a lot faster. It saves a lot of time. So I'm just gonna use this, but know that if you want to, you can just sew each piece on individually with just like a line going down through it. The fall sign is really easy because the letters just go straight across, but autumn curves a bit. Those letters curve. So I have provided a guide in the PDF version. So you can print that out and put it right on top here. Okay, but first I'm gonna put my leaf down so that I know where its placement goes. And it should be about 1.5 inches from the bottom. And try to center it as much as you can. Okay, so I like that for my leaf. I think it's in a good position. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my guide, and each letter goes across each of these pieces. Okay, so my A for autumn, it will be centered on top of that line here. And then my U will be centered on this line here. Same with my T, centered on that line, and just keep going, centering each letter on top of those lines. And then you can pull this off and decide if you like that placement. Okay, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just gonna glue these all down in place. And if you wanted to, you could pin them down and sew them in place. But like I said, the glue's just a little faster for me, a little easier. So I am just going to keep these in their spot and dab some glue on the back and press them down into the fabric. I'm gonna do that on all sides of the thing. So that it won't come up. And you want to press it pretty firmly down into that bottom layer of felt so that the glue can adhere really good and it won't come off. Now that the letters are all on, I'm going to do the leaf as well. Now this glue will take some time to dry, so you might want to leave it overnight and then come back and finish putting the dowel in and the twine. Now for time's sake and tutorial's sake, I'm just gonna go ahead and show you what to do with the dowel and the twine. For your twine, you're gonna wanna cut about 28 inches, so a pretty good piece. And then you are gonna take your dowel and you're gonna just stick it straight into your little casing that you made. Might take a little wiggling because the wood gets stuck on the felt sometimes. That's all right. Then you're gonna take the twine and you're just gonna tie it onto both sides. So you can double knot this and just leave it. Or if you want to, you can knot it off and then put some hot glue on it to keep it in place. So that's what the hot glue is for. I like those knots on the back better, so I just took the twine off and turned them around. And then what I'm gonna do, I think, is just going to clip this piece off right here. And then I'm gonna hot glue these in place. So I'm just gonna put a dab of hot glue right here so that the twine stays in it. And then I'm also gonna put a dab of hot glue where I cut the thing off so that it doesn't come unraveled or unknotted. So I'm just going all around that little twine. Okay. You want to hold it up for a second so that it can cool off before you put it back down so that it doesn't stick to your table. And then you just want to do the other side the same way. Okay, let that glue cool down and then the sign is done. That's all there is to it. If you see any loose threads or anything from your twine or you missed any threads from clipping, you can go back and take care of those. But other than that, it's done. So, shall we go hang it up and see how it looks? I hope you guys have so much fun with this project. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.